Hello, this afternoon, two stories related to banking. First, questions being raised about the €170 million facility secured by government for the establishment of Development Bank Ghana. Did we really need to borrow to fund a new bank? I'll be speaking with a banking and finance expert. Also this afternoon, banks expected to procure verification devices to make Ghana cards acceptable for transaction. Ahead, we'll be speaking with the CEO of the Ghana Bankers Association, JoyNews, on discussion so far. Welcome, everyone. You are at the marketplace. My name is Darryl Kwao. Details coming up. This afternoon, questions are being raised as to whether government really needed to borrow €170 million for the establishment of Development Bank Ghana. Do we need the bank in the first place? Well, we start off from Belgium, where a signing ceremony took place. President Akufo-Addo said this.
We value very much our relationship with the European Union. It's been a very engaging and very productive relationship for our country. And we want to do everything possible to deepen and strengthen that relationship, especially in a world where many things are not as they were before. And it is necessary for all of us to redefine the steps for the future. But in that redefinition, I think it's reassuring to find that there are some partners, some institutions that have been friendly with Ghana that will continue to be friendly with Ghana in this effort, and the European Union, and particularly the bank. The bank has been in Ghana for nearly, almost 50 years now, and has proved to be a very reliable partner of our country. I'm happy that we have been able today to arrive at this ceremony. The bank is going to play a very important part in the rapid economic development of our country. We want to restructure the Ghanaian economy, transform it. It has been a traditional African economy, largely raw material-based exporting economy, and we're looking to be an economy that places much greater emphasis on value addition and value addition activities. We see this bank as one that is going to play a pivotal role for us in defining that future.
Well, President of the European Investment Bank, Dr. Werner Hoyer, expressed confidence that the establishment of Development Bank Ghana will help unlock opportunities for growth in Ghana.
We are pleased today to accompany you in realizing your vision for Ghana's new development bank and to help enhance its impact. So I'm pleased to sign, together with the Foreign Minister, the EIB's €170 million support for the ambitious Development Bank Ghana. This represents the EU bank's largest ever engagement in Ghana, the largest ever EIB support to a national promotional bank in Africa. We look really forward to seeing this institution operational already over the next few weeks, as confirmed recently by Minister Ofori Atta. The new institution will unlock much-needed private sector investment, enabling 10,000 entrepreneurs and businesses to access long-term financing in local currency. This will provide a real boost to the growth of business across the country. Crucially, the new Development Bank Ghana will make a key contribution to job creation, forging economic opportunities, and social development across the country.
Dr. Benjamin Amwa is an expert in banking and finance. He joins me with some perspective on the story. Great to have you this afternoon on the marketplace. So do we need a new bank, a development bank for that matter? What is the business case?
Thank you very much for having me. We definitely need a development bank at this stage of our development because we have tried it in the past. We tried it with ADB, NIB, and we know that over time, ADB and NIB have repositioned themselves as universal commercial banks now. And so access to medium-term, long-term funds, especially for the SMEs, have become a challenge. And so if we are having a new setup now, a new establishment in the form of development finance institutions that will then attend to this sector of the economy. If we're talking about revamping and transforming the economy, and want the small and medium enterprises to lead, then we need to have dedicated financial services to provide the needed support. And so from that point, I will say, yes, we need it. And we need a development bank that will be solely looking at this aspect of our economy.
We need a development bank, and that is the reason why we are borrowing 170 million euros for this, when there could have been other alternatives and when we are struggling with debt. So how do you convince anyone that this is the good way to go?
Okay, then you have to look at the business case for the development bank and why we need the 170 million euros. If you have been monitoring the financial sector space for some time, I realize that when the banking sector cleanup started, we spent about 21 billion, and we are still counting. We had to force merge 5 banks that failed to mobilize 400 million each. That became Consolidated Bank. We also had to force GCB to take up UT and Capital Bank. Clearly, having considered all these factors, we realized that along the trajectory, Ministry of Finance made it clear that we needed a development bank. And so last year, I think in August, we had the Development Financial Institutions Act 2020, Act 1082, that clearly spelled out the regulatory framework for development financial institutions. So clearly, there's been a lot of background work, including the World Bank, to lead this initiative. And so it has come at a good time. It is good. The 170 million euros translate into about capitalization for 3 universal banks. That's about 1.2 billion. So that 170 million euros, if you want to look at it in today's terms, about 3 universal banks that is coming together to provide this facility. And so once we have a business case and want to transform the economy, we're going to have a good governance system in place to make sure that the funds are used and utilized well to transform the economy. Then there's a good business case for the 170 million euros to support the SME sector that is very important for the growth that we want to pursue.
I know some others who would disagree with you on this matter, but you pointed out NIB and ADB, which originally, I think, had some development funding programs. And so the other argument is, why not merge NIB and ADB to meet the same needs rather than set up a new bank?
Yeah, it's a good argument to make. However, if you looked at NIB and ADB, these are banks that have not posited good and appreciable results over time. Again, these banks have a lot of overhangs on themselves that they have to deal with. You don't want to start an initiative with institutions that have a lot of issues to deal with. You need to have that new kid on the block free to establish and have new relationship with businesses than to pump in a whole lot of money into setups that do have challenge currently. So if you are going to have a new setup to start new relationship, it gives us a clean slate to start on, to build a business case and to monitor, than to merge these institutions that have not given us so much good results and then pump new money into it that may not be turned around successfully. So for me, if you ask me, I'll say yes, it is good we start with a new setup, clean slate with new funding, a good governance structure in place to make sure that what happened to the others in the past will not be repeated.
My final question, there are concerns about our debt situation. And so while we are building a good business case, aren't we exposing ourselves to certain risks?
Definitely, banking is the business of managing risk. So once you go into banking, you are exposing yourself to some level of risk. On the other hand, if you successfully manage the risk inherent in the banking activity, it caters for all the fears that we are having. The most important thing is that if you go through the Act clearly states that you need to have professionals, good governance structure to monitor and then to supervise the activities of these development banks. If we can do that, and we can recover, then I don't think we should be so scared about how much debt we are contracting from this particular initiative that we are getting ourselves into.
You are rather optimistic. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Benjamin Amwa there, an expert in banking and finance issues. I appreciate that you could make the time for us this afternoon. So banks are expected to procure verification devices in order to make Ghana cards acceptable for transactions. That's according to the National Identification Authority. In an interview with this Executive Secretary, Professor Kenneth Atefa, he said plans are far advanced to ensure that the cards become acceptable by banks and telecom networks by December this year.
The verification platforms, which will enable the banks and the telcos to verify the identities of people who present the Ghana card, has been built. It has been tested or piloted with Cowbank. It is being found to be working perfectly. It now remains for the banks and financial institutions and the telcos to procure the devices, the verification devices, which will make the verification system possible. The platform is built and is ready, and the conversations with the Bank of Ghana and with the Ministry of Communications are at advanced stages, so that all the financial institutions and the banks and the telcos will be able to procure these devices so that we are a go. But because the procurement of these will inevitably take some time, it is envisaged that there will be a certain moratorium, a certain period during which they must all come on board. So that is being done, and I am confident that, as the Vice President has announced, latest by December 31st of this year, all these banks and non-banking financial institutions and the telecom companies will be on board.
And so we are expecting that banks will soon communicate to customers the usage of only national ID cards as primary source of documentation for transactions. Now, this follows discussions between the banks represented by the Ghana Association of Bankers, the National Identification Authority, and the Bank of Ghana. The discussion is said to have reached an advanced stage, and a roadmap on when to use the national ID card will be crafted shortly. So joining me is JoyNews, who is Chief Executive of the Ghana Bankers Association. Grateful you could join us this afternoon, sir. Before we talk about the national ID card, I don't know if you have anything to say about the Development Bank Ghana and concerns being raised.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I listened to my friend Dr. Amwa very much, and I think he hit the nail right on the head. A little like I will add to it is the process for setting up the development bank. This time, though I wasn't around when NIB, ADB, and Bank for Housing, Cooperative Bank, and all those banks were set up. But the processes leading to the setup of this one has been quite unique. And as I sit here, it's not as though you knew I have anything to do with the development bank. That's why you called me on this. But then I sit on the search committee of the development bank. So I'm part of the group of people that have been elected to be looking for the directors, the board members, the senior executives of this development bank. What that tells you is that it is not a government thing. It is a development thing, and it is the processes that lead to who comes to that institution that will spell the story of whether it is going to be successful or not successful. As far as I have been involved, I know very much that this process has been wholly transparent and is being professionally handled. PwC have been at the forefront of it, and behind PwC, you have this committee that is working very closely with them to ensure that we have the right people, private sector minded development specialists who get recruited into this institution to make all the objectives that have been spelled out possible. Do we need it? I think so.
I guess the concern, and not to belabor the point, is why are you going to borrow to do this, when we are already dealing with a debt situation?
It's a catch-22 situation, but the point is that do we believe in the solution that is going to be offered by the development bank? and the multiplier effect of that solution. I think we should really be avert our minds to what the development bank is going to do and take the trouble to actually read the act that establishes it. One thing that has been lacking in this country has been access to long-term funding to aid our developmental process. What the development bank is going to do is not going to deal with me and you. It's going to deal with available financial institutions and make access to this long-term funding possible through normal banking institutions that we deal with, those that cannot give you 15-year money and say you can, through the development bank, access through them a 15-year money at a price that can be affordable to aid our development process. I think where we get the money is relevant, but the overarching discussion should be, what is this money going to be put to? And if it goes through directly into the development banking coffers, and it goes to do exactly what has been spelled out on the books to do, I think it will be money that is wisely borrowed and for good purpose. And
since you sit on the board, right?
Not on the board. I don't sit on the board.
You are part of the committee that is
different people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, different people.
And let me just be upfront here. I did not apply for this job. I'm there, and because they want to make it as transparent as possible, I got a letter saying, would you be pleased to be on this committee to help us select the right people? And that is how come I got involved.
So my question, since you sit on the committee, I'm sure the idea of whether to merge NIB or ADB came up. I don't know, some sort of discussion. I want your expert view on this, because that's also another argument that is being raised, that you could have done that and help these banks fund development programs rather than create a new one.
I think that question has been properly answered by Dr. Amwa. The scope of the committee's work is very narrow. Our job is to bring in directors and senior executives just at the C-suite level. And that is exactly what we are focused on.
All right. And so we're going to start our conversation on the national ID cards for banking transactions. And I want to first start with wondering why, because we got some indications that banks were refusing to accept new voter ID cards for banking transactions. What is the challenge, really?
I think it's the wrong impression that has been created out there. Banks are not refusing to accept new voters' ID card for banking transactions. The issue is, why do we take ID? We take ID so we can identify the person, the bearer. Unfortunately, the infrastructure that enables us to authenticate the new voters' ID card has not been updated with the new records. Okay. So unfortunately, banks don't have access to that facility. It is a third-party arrangement between the Electoral Commission and a company that is called GVIVE. So it is GVIVE that must work with the Electoral Commission and refresh that database and provide the link to the bank, so that as you present your new voters' ID card to your bank, the bank can have a facility to authenticate that you are who you say you are. Banks stand ready as soon as that information is available. New voters' ID card will be accepted for banking transactions.
So we are settling on the national IDs. How safe and convenient would that be?
As far as we've seen thus far, and the pilot program that has been run with CalBank, and all the security features that are available in the Ghana card, we have every reason to believe that it will be safer. There is nothing like a zero risk in anything, and so we believe that it will be more safer than what we have as driver's license and all the other forms of IDs. This one has a lot more embedded authentication functionalities. It has facial recognition capabilities. It is biometric, and we can connect directly to the NIA's database to also authenticate. And it has other functionalities that I'm sure in the course of time, NIA will let the public know about. So to that extent, I'm not an expert in this field, but to that extent, and to the extent that all these security features have been embedded, we have a reason to believe that it's safer.
Okay, final question. What timelines are you looking at?
it's difficult to be explicit about timelines and be emphatic about that because there's an ongoing process which has yet to start, and that is an integration process. And whilst we're going through the integration process, there must be, as the executive director or the secretary, Professor Kifwa of NIA, Professor Kifwa mentioned, there is also the leg of procuring the biometric devices that we will use to authenticate the bearers of these cards we present into a banking environment. So it's difficult to say it is A or B, but in the interim, the workaround we've found, working with NIA and Bank of Ghana, is whilst we are working on making sure that that comes on stream, the available processes for identifying our customers will be in force. Tentatively, we're giving ourselves until the end of this year, which to allow for the parallel run. And I'm sure by the end of this year, I'm sure we would have made significant progress in, onboarding the NIA and the Ghana card, and then perhaps these other cards will fill out.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, sir. Grateful you could speak with us and share some insight about the Development Bank Ghana, although that was not what we were intended to discuss. But I hope to speak to you another time. John Amwa, the CEO of the Ghana Association of Bankers. There, you're watching The Marketplace. We are taking a short break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to The Marketplace. Some currency news to share with you this afternoon. The current stability of the Ghana cedi against the dollar may not be ending anytime soon. Now, latest data from the Bank of Ghana shows it could even appreciate marginally against the US dollar in the next 2 months. Now, George Rafi has more in the following report.
The projection is based on the latest forward auction sale report, which shows that in the next 45 days, the central bank is willing to sell a dollar to banks and investors at 5 Ghana cedis, 73 pesos. Now, looking at the current rate of 5 Ghana cedis, 77 pesos, it is clear that the Bank of Ghana believes that, based on its data extrapolations and forecast, the local currency could be stabilizing strongly against the dollar and possibly appreciating marginally. The local currency has been fairly stable in most parts of this year. While some may attribute it to the various policy measures by the Bank of Ghana, like the forced sale of dollars, others believe that it has to do with little demand for dollars because of COVID-19 restrictions. But if this trend should continue, then businesses and individuals might be the biggest beneficiaries. This is because of the impact of this on the cost of borrowing, inflation rate, standard of living, and a fairly stabilized prices of petroleum products on the market. It could also help government in making some savings in terms of those dollar loans that it is currently servicing. According to the 2021 budget, government is setting aside over 20 billion Ghana cedis as interest payments.
And on that promising note, we end Marketplace this afternoon. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. You can read more about that. The Housing Minister instructing heads of SOEs to implement policy on local raw materials. And that story that aired yesterday on this program, Ghana overtaking Nigeria and Tanzania with 4th largest travelers from the US. myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
On Money Lab today, we conclude our discussions on the type of collective investment schemes that we have. For today, we will be looking at index funds. These are type of funds that track a specific index, such as the Dow Jones or the Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index. They follow the components of the index that they track, and their performance is also the same as the index performs. I hope you have enjoyed the series on collective investment schemes, where we discuss funds types such as fixed income funds, money market funds, balance funds, equity funds, specialty funds, and concluded with index funds. Join us for subsequent edition as we discuss various investment tips.